Digital inclusion is no longer optional. With new regulations like the EU Accessibility Act, accessible design is now a requirement across industries and regions. The A4Q Certified Professional Digital Accessibility Certification equips you with practical skills to design and build digital experiences that include everyone. From WC, AG guidelines, and assistive tools to inclusive design, thinking, and accessibility testing, gain the knowledge to make a real impact. Learn, create, include. Get certified in digital accessibility.
Well, hello and welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm delighted to be back this afternoon with Julian Cambridge. Hi, Julian.
Good afternoon, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Julian, quick introduction. You're an ISTQB, as an accredited training provider, delivering accredited training courses in CTFL and I believe also the exciting CT Gen AI. Your session today, I know it's going to be perhaps a little bit of a blast from the past. It's the old V model, which is interesting when everyone probably is talking about Gen AI and what have you. So I know this is a session which is looking at the structure of the discipline and how the architecture can give confidence and discipline. So I'm really looking forward to hearing this. So without carrying on speaking for much longer, I'm going to hand over to you. Everyone sit back and enjoy listening to our lovely Julian Cambridge.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Debbie. Okay, thank you and welcome to you all. The V model is very much a blast from the past. It's very much quite an ancient model in the world of software testing, but still very much relevant to even the new ways of working that we come across today. Whether that be agile or whether that be the new AI or generative AI that we use so much, continuous integration, continuous development, automation testing, all these different testing methods that allow for testing to move forward. So why the V model? Why am I going all the way back, perhaps even 20, maybe even longer, 20 to 30 years, in talking about the V model and what impact, what relevance does it have to our way of working today? The V model, and we look at the structure, the discipline, and the architecture, it's very much a sequential model. When we speak about sequential, we look at waterfall and models that have very much step after step. Once you do one step, it's very difficult to go backwards. You keep moving forwards. And then, of course, agile came in to accommodate change. So it's very much a cycle, very iterative. You're able to go back in steps and then ahead to changing requirements. And we've got an image of the V model here. Well, there's an image of an example of the V model. And you've got your items on the left and you've got your items on the right. And as you hear, for now, I'm using the word items to describe either or. I could also use the words test basis on the left, and I could use the words test levels on the right. And then now we're going into a bit more detail. Now, I tend to deliver the ISTQB Certified Tester Foundation level course quite often. And the V model is quite a key topic or chapter within that course. So for those that have taken or will be taking the CTFL course, the V model is very much a model that will come up. And you've got two words that I'm going to focus on. You've got test basis, very much requirements, documents, what the business create. And then you've got sort of test where, what is created during testing, i.e. your test plan, your test scripts, your test cases. That's the test where, but it's the test basis that you're looking to refer to ensure that you're doing the right thing. And the test basis in this context, you've got requirements, you've got system design, architecture design, module design. And they very much form the left of the V, and it starts with requirements and then it works its way down. Then you have the test levels on the right, with coding very much parked in the middle there. And the activities on the left is very much everything to ensure that coding is ready to go. And then the right of the V is very much saying that everything past coding can be verified. And that's where you've got unit or component testing, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing. And for those that have done the CTFL or worked in software testing for many years, this is what you call the test levels on the far right side. Now, I will be coming back to address this image as the presentation goes on. But for now, let's go straight on to slide 4. What if testing did not come at the end? Now, there's very much been that historic narrative of testing being shoehorned at the end, as opposed to being integrated into every stage of a sequential cycle. So, for example, you don't just start testing when developers have finished creating their code. You actually start testing from the requirements, i.e., static testing. You're looking at documents, you're looking at designs, and you're trying to find defects as early as possible, reduce the risk, and of course, give confidence where quality is concerned. So we're trying to shoehorn testing in every single stage of the life cycle model. Now you think of waterfall or life cycle model could be requirements, design, development, testing, and then deployment. And there's perhaps a testing activity that can be done at each model. We call that shift left approach, test as early as possible. Now, the V model is not waterfall in disguise. It's very much still a sequential model, but very much more tailored to testing. Where the waterfall model covers the whole software development lifecycle, the V model is very much more testing specific. So, with that being said, when we are writing requirements documents, in our mind, we're thinking, well, what would be the testing that goes hand in hand with this? And this is where, I come back to the image of the V model, in fact, I'll just go back a slide. And when you've got the image of the V model and you've got requirements analysis, you're then thinking, well, acceptance testing needs to be at the back of my mind. When we're creating the system design document of some sort, you then may say, well, system testing needs to be at the back of my mind when creating such test basis. Likewise, with architecture design, integration testing is at the back of our mind or the forefront. And the module design, the same thing with unit testing. So the V model, where we've got words such as structure, traceability, and confidence, is very much saying when we're creating these test bases or we're working with those, to keep those test levels, those testing activities in mind to say, well, the requirements analysis will give us the information that we need to do acceptance testing. And then we work down the V on the left-hand side of coding, very much being the center where on the left is everything to make sure coding is ready to go. And then on the right is to make sure everything to verify that coding has gone well. So I'll just go back to this slide where I was speaking about the difference between the waterfall model, both sequential. Waterfall is very much the software development lifecycle, and the V model is more tailored to testing. But like any model that's been introduced, whether that be iterative in agile or the spiral model or the waterfall model, there was always a reason to bring those in. And what was happening before the V model, we did not have a point of reference. We did not have those test bases on the left to say, well, these need to be done in order to verify testing on the right-hand side of the V model. It was very much guesswork, and you've got it in the bullet points here. Early structured development had challenges. Testing was late. Defects were discovered after heavy investment. Issues around requirements, issues around traceability. Okay, how do we link our test cases back to the requirements with defects and all the rest of it? And of course, in any sequential model, it's very difficult to go back, or one could even say it's very costly to go back. Hence why we have here expensive rework. Now, we've got a point at the top of this slide here. The real issue was not sequencing, it was disconnect. It was everybody in their own spaces. The requirements document did what it had to do, but there was no connect with well acceptance testing. There was no thought in place into say, well, how are we going to validate and verify these two or one document versus the activity? And this is where the V model was able to come in and bridge that gap. It was all about the link between the two. Now, one could be very honest here. I've very rarely, especially today, gone into an organization and seen a requirements analysis document, a system design document, an architecture design document, a module design document, all four documents, all updated by an author, written to start with, sent around to get signed off. It's very, very rare that you will have an individual document for all four test bases, or whichever is on the left side of your V to match the activity. I mean, very lucky if you even get a requirements document in today's world, of course. That is also a struggle in its own right. But it's very rare that you will go into an organization, a company, and see all four available. Who's going to update these documents? Who's managing these documents and so forth? But in today's world, you may even get one document that may have all four sides of the left side of the V model. You may have a requirements document that may also feature system design, architecture design, module design, and so forth. The point of the V model, especially in today's world, is a point of reference. We need a point of reference for activities such as the test levels in component testing, integration, system, and acceptance. We need a point of reference, and the point of reference is being guarded by the test bases on the left of the V model. Okay. Now, I also want to sort of speak about how do we include the V model in today's world? Of course, today is all about agile and it's all about AI and all the rest of it. But we can't forget about traceability. We cannot forget about traceability. The shift in thinking. Instead of build, then test, every single stage of whether that be the software development lifecycle in requirements, design, development, test, deploy, or whichever it may be, or the V model, and every stage we are thinking of testing. We're integrating testing as we go along. We are not shoehorning testing at the end. This should be an activity that is ingrained from start to finish. Diagram comes back up again. It's not just the life cycle, it's a reflection. And this is where you've got the arrows going from left to right to say, well, these test bases on the left will provide information for test activity on the right. Now, for those that may have heard of static and dynamic testing, static testing is very much when you're looking at documents, or reviewing is a great word to use when speaking about static testing. Reviewing documents, reviewing test bases, and giving feedback to find defects, reduce risk, and increase confidence. Shift left approach, the earlier you do so, the better. And also, when we are reviewing these documents and we're reviewing the system design, is system testing included? Is it ingrained from that early stage on? When we're looking at module design, are we thinking about component and unit testing at the same time? It is not just a life cycle, it is a mirror, or better yet, it's a reflection. The words verification and validation also come into play in terms of validating the code which sits at the bottom of the V model, very integral to both sides of the V. Okay, so we spoke about the left side of the V, very much a test basis, and you'll see V models illustrated in many different ways. It may not always be requirements analysis, system design, architecture design. How many times have you seen the waterfall model illustrated with different boxes and different stages? And it's the same for the V model, but the point and the context is never lost. The intention of the V model is to provide a verification check that what's been done before coding has testing in mind. Okay. And where you'll find the V model, you won't always find the V model everywhere. You'll find the V model where the context of failure is far more higher. Now, or the risk of failure is far more higher. Now, there is a principle in one of the testing principles in ISTQB where they speak about, well, the context matters when it comes to testing. Okay, if you were to test software on an airplane or software in a hospital, it's much more risk adverse than perhaps testing on a computer game or testing on a smartwatch or testing on perhaps a device that you use every day, like a mobile phone or so. So when we look at the V model, and there's some examples to come in the slides uh, that lay in front of us, there's different areas where the V model becomes far more important. It's probably not going to be used in maybe environments where change is often, okay, where there's constant change in requirements, there's continuous integration, continuous deployment, very much agile, iterative ways of working, especially where AI is involved. But in the next few slides, we'll have some good examples of that. Now, the base of the V, which the slide is talking about here, is very much coding and development. Okay, this is the bridge. This is where everything comes together. Everything before shapes it, everything after it validates it, i.e. the test bases on the left and the validation of the test levels on the right. Okay. The right side of the V, of course, the test levels that we've been speaking about. Acceptance, very much done by the business. System testing, very much done by independent test team. And integration testing, which is very uh, common in today's world, can also float both ways. It can also be unit integration testing or component integration testing, as well as it can be system integration testing. So very much a test level that can either support unit and support system at the same time. And this brings us on to the structural symmetry slide, where very much what we've been speaking about with the illustration that I've been showing on screen of the V model, and just the relationship between the test basis or the artifacts on the left in regards to and the relationship they have with the test levels on the right. Again, very repetitive here, where I'm going to speak about integrating testing into our thinking on every stage of whether that be the V model or whether that be the waterfall model in a software development lifecycle model. It's not to shoehorn testing at the end, but to have testing in our thoughts at every single stage. Every artifact has a verification partner. Nothing exists without accountability. And where accountability is mentioned, the word responsibility also comes into play as well. Traceability is, of course, the word that will always follow that example there. And we've got bidirectional traceability, being able to trace defects and test cases back and forth to link defects and to find requirements. Requirements can be traced to acceptance tests, architectural designs, and so forth. You've seen the arrow on the diagram linking the artifacts on the left to the test levels on the right. This is very much the basis of what we mean when we say traceability. It does force the question, what will prove this work? So we speak about validation and verification, what happens before the coding, which is at the bottom of the V, and how do we verify that after coding, we are in the right place. Of course, I'm going to continue saying testing is all about reducing the risk of poor quality, increasing the confidence that there is quality, and finding defects as early as possible. And the earlier that we do this, whether that be the shift left approach, as we like to call it, the earlier we do this, the better. And a perfect way to do this is the V model, where that's always in our thinking. Okay. But here's the question, here's the honest question. What did it not solve? What did the V model not solve? Well, we look at changing requirements, okay, cycles, continuous delivery. DevOps is very much the buzzword of the last 10 to 15 years or so. Continuous integration, continuous deployment, sending code through the pipelines, testing, getting early feedback. Perhaps the V model or even sequential is not the right model for this. And this is where context does matter. Where the V model does thrive, we'll look at the industries that are being mentioned here: aerospace, defense, automotive, medical devices, banking infrastructure. I mean, this is dotting the I's and crossing the T's at a completely different level here. This is very much, we cannot afford to fail in any one of these industries. So the V model is very much, we need to be certain about what we are doing here. Of course, you've got compliance and regulatory rules that applies as well. The V model very much fits where everything has to be certainty. Okay, aerospace, defense, you can imagine what the issues are. Medical devices, if defects were leaked or found, the impact could be absolutely enormous. But regardless of how AI has emerged, and AI is absolutely fantastic. I love AI in testing. I actually delivered a generative AI ISTQB course as well. AI is absolutely brilliant. Agile, again, very much innovative, iterative approach, Scrum, Kanban, and everything else that has been birthed since the emergence of Agile in where software development is concerned. But even with that modern relevance, you still need clear requirements. You still need defined test levels. You still need an element of traceability and validation where verification is concerned. And this is where the V model still has its place. It still has a seat at the table. So even in iterative environments, the thinking of the V remains valuable. Are we able to trace back to testware? Are we able to test basis, creating testware when we're testing? Are we able to go back to the artifacts and be certain about what we are trying to discover? So even in a fast changing world where automation's now brought in to speed up testing, we still need all the elements that you can see bullet pointed there: clear requirements, define the test levels, traceability, and of course, verification and validation. Okay. So from a leadership perspective, I mean, I do like the square in the bottom right. Confidence builds trust. Okay, and this is what the V model has come to remind us. Okay, structure creates confidence as well, not even just in testing, of course, in everyday life. Build with validation in mind, design with verification in mind, and test against intent. Okay, so we're not just guessing here. Of course, exploratory testing is phenomenal, but where we have um, test bases and artifacts in place, this is where we want our testing to be far more certain in our approach. Okay, using the test levels on the right, coupled with the test artifacts on the left. Okay. Now you might think this might be a statement to laugh at, but the V model was not created to slow teams down. It wasn't created for that. It was created to prevent expensive failure. Though I'm not going to argue, it may slow teams down because it is so um, there's very much a serious approach when it comes to covering every single step and every single angle. But for every commitment on the left side of the V, we need to make sure that the right side has proved the concept. And that was the V model. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you ever so much, Julian, for highlighting how the thinking of the V, though it's traditional, can guide testing and support quality today. Let's have a look and see if we've got some questions. Is the V model still relevant in an agile world?
Now, this is a very interesting question. Is the waterfall model still relevant in the agile world? Is the sequential way of thinking still relevant in the agile world? Or one could easily argue, no, agile is all about fast changing and the iterative approach. But one could also very well argue that agile teams still need traceability between requirements and tests. They still need clarity around the test levels. And that's where the discipline of pairing definition and validation will never expire. And that's where the V model can, of course, be still relevant in the agile world.
Thank you. So a little look and see what else we've got. What is the biggest misconception about the V model? There's legacy positioning. Yes.
Well, the V model seems to be seen as waterfall in disguise. Waterfall is very much a sequential approach. You start with requirements and then you work your way down, and somehow you end up at deploying to go live. And people think the V model is very much in the same diagram, just more in regards to testing, more linked to testing. But the V model is more about the relationship than the sequence. And it's all about the relationship of the artifacts on the left with the test levels on the right, not necessarily the sequence, but more the relationship in saying when we are creating these artifacts, we have got these test levels in mind.
Oh, very helpful. I think one last question here. Oh, where would you avoid using the V model?
Where changes are often infrequent. Very similar again to sequential versus iterative, where the changes are constant, continuous integration, continuous deployment, which is very much the introduction of DevOps over the past years. The V model being a sequential model may not be the best fit. That's probably where I would avoid using it, but the thinking still remains. The traceability of testware and test bases and artifacts with the test activities on the right, that thinking will always remain. But of course, we've got iterative approaches that allow for better structure when it comes to continuous change in requirements.
Fantastic. Julian, I've just been told we've got 2 more questions, which is fantastic. So let's have a little look at them. What is the most important takeaway for testers? I think that's a good question, actually.
Well, the 2 words that come to mind is proactive and reactive. Testing should never be reactive where we can help it. The V model allows for testing to be proactive. The V model teaches proactive test thinking by always thinking about your test levels with these artifacts on the left side of the V. That's probably the most important takeaway that I would suggest for testing. We don't need to wait until the testing stage for it to come into mind. Of course, you've got static testing. Are these artifacts, test bases, having the test levels and test activities in mind?
If you had to summarize the V model in one sentence, what would it be?
One sentence. I would say for every decision made in development, there must be a deliberate and structured way to prove it works. That's what the V model does. That's exactly what the V model does. For every decision made in development, there must be a deliberate and structured way to prove that it works. And that is exactly what the V model does for us.
Oh, thank you. That's a really nice way to end, actually. Julian Cambridge, thank you so much for your presentation and that useful insight. A little note to the audience. We have, as always, the A4Q Summit, the vote for the best presentation, best speaker. So please do go to Julian's bio on the A4Q Summit website and cast your votes. And don't forget to stay tuned. We've got a few more sessions this afternoon. Of course, we also have some sessions tomorrow. We have a 2-day summit this year, which is really, really exciting. Finally, again, Julian, thank you so much. It's great to spend some time with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Digital inclusion is no longer optional. With new regulations like the EU Accessibility Act, accessible design is now a requirement across industries and regions. The A4Q Certified Professional Digital Accessibility Certification equips you with practical skills to design and build digital experiences that include everyone, From WC, AG guidelines, and assistive tools to inclusive design, thinking, and accessibility testing, gain the knowledge to make a real impact. Learn, create, include. Get certified in digital accessibility.